Hi everybody, it's Clarke Camper with the February edition of Wall Street and Washington. Today I'd like to talk about three things. First, I want to give a brief update on IPL legislation that's moving through the Congress. Second, I'd like to talk about a significant development around promulgation of the Volcker Rule. And third, I'd like to talk about a concept that probably most of you have not heard about, and that is Taxmageddon. First, in terms of IPL legislation, one of our priorities in advocacy here at NYSE Euronext is promotion of job creation, and we think there's no better way to create jobs than for companies to go public. In fact, most studies have shown that for the average company, about 90% of its growth in jobs happens after the company actually goes public. And so it was with that concept in mind that just last week the House Financial Services Committee, in an overwhelming display of bipartisanship, voted 54-1 to approve a bill that would make it easier for companies to go public. The bill was sponsored by Congressman Fincher of Tennessee and Carney of Delaware. They did a terrific job in educating their colleagues and pushing forward this initiative. The bill essentially would make it easier for small companies that are, in fact, a new category of small issuers created under the bill called emerging growth companies. And these emerging growth companies would slowly have the full panoply of federal regulation laid on them over a 5-year period. Prospects for the bill are good. We expect the full House to vote on the bill, hopefully positively, later this spring. And already in the Senate, there's a companion piece of legislation that was introduced by Senator Schumer of New York and Senator Toomey of Pennsylvania. Again, a bipartisan duo. And so we're very optimistic about this legislation moving forward this year, and we'll keep you posted. Second, wanted to talk about the Volcker Rule. What I have talked a lot about in the past is that the Volcker Rule is a good example of where advocacy really makes a difference. Spent a lot of attention to the fact that the rule as proposed is controversial and to many eyes quite problematic. There's been an outpouring of concern about the rule, many suggestions for changes that should be made to the rule. What has not been paid much attention to, though, however, is that just recently a number of non-financial companies got into the action, and I'll say in a moment why that's important. But companies that have gotten into the action and filed comment letters around Volcker include GE, Abbott Laboratories, Safeway, the parent company of the restaurant chain that owns Olive Garden and Red Lobster. You know, why are all these companies interested? Well, they believe that the Volcker Rule, as proposed, could actually hurt their ability both to issue stock and bonds, and also possibly hurt their ability to manage risk, particularly through use of derivatives. So why is that important? Well, it's important because it turns the Volcker Rule from principally a financial services industry issue to a much broader political issue, and that increases the chances that the rule will be improved and I think made acceptable by the time it is finally promulgated. Already we've seen both members of the House and the Senate from both sides of the aisle who normally wouldn't play in financial services issues get more involved in the Volcker Rule. And again, I trace that back to the involvement of these non-financial firms. Finally, I want to say a few words about Taxmageddon. As I said, that's a concept that hasn't gotten the attention I think it deserves, and it refers to the whole host of tax provisions that expire at the end of 2012. By the way, that whole host of tax provisions add up to a collective $500 billion tax increase in 2013. So let me say a few words about that. Spent a ton of attention, obviously, to the payroll tax holiday. It was agreed to by the President and the Congress a few weeks ago. But what has not been paid attention to is when that tax holiday expires, so do a number of other tax provisions either expire or kick in. So, for instance, the Bush tax cuts expire. A new Medicare tax kicks in. That's part of the healthcare initiative. There are changes in treatment for the way that the child deduction works. There's also a change in treatment for married couples filing jointly, all of which, as I said, adds up collectively to a new tax burden next year of $500 billion. Now, I think the conventional wisdom, and I tend to agree with that, is that one way or another Congress and the President will come to some agreement to alleviate that burden. But a couple things to think about. First, I think from a market's perspective, the average investor is not paying attention to this issue, and I believe that to most, this will sort of miraculously appear as a major issue right around the time of the election. Because between now and the election, the chance that Congress and the President deal with this issue is virtually nil. Another reason that this should matter from a market perspective is, even though, as I said, conventional wisdom is that this issue will be at least addressed significantly, we can't assume that. Past history has shown that even the most obvious deals in the current toxic political environment can't always be cut, and it's possible that this large new tax burden is indeed laid on our economy sometime next year. Finally, another element of Taxmageddon that's important is if you or your firm have tax issues that are of importance to you, now's the time to get in and advocate. Staff are obviously aware of this issue. They are working on fixes. Do not wait until November or December to try to get into the debate. You need to be in there now. With that, I'll wrap it up. We'll see you next month on Wall Street and Washington.